Hey, gentlemen, thank you for having me on. I just wanted to kind of share, from this perspective, I've performed neurological exams on quite a few patients over my years. And when you're looking for somebody who's either had head trauma or maybe has had a stroke, even people with dementia, which is another form of neurological damage, there's certain things that you look for. And my wife, when she saw Errol Spence enter the ring, she asked me, she's like, he looks like he's on marijuana. And I told her, I said, he has residual neurological damage from his car accident. That people have commented on this, but people, if you don't have the experience doing this, you're not going to pick up on it. So one of the things when you're doing a neurological exam on somebody, you look at, there's like a glassy look to a person's eyes when they have either a concussion or they have advanced stages of dementia. And if you compare video of Errol Spence before his accident, just do a little assessment on the eye exam of what I'm telling you. It is apparent. I mean, it is embarrassing how obvious it is that he's significantly compromised. So what I would say to this is just think back to what they did to Muhammad Ali when they let him fight with Parkinson's. People will let somebody get into the ring even though there is obvious issues with their ability to perform in a boxing match. So further evidence of this is listen to his speech patterns, start comparing his speech patterns before his accident to after. There is a distinct difference in his enunciation. I know part of that is because he has dentures, but even just listen to how he is formulating his words, his thought process. He's much, much slower. Now, another component to a sign of advanced neurological damage is a loss of balance. That's why as people age, primary cause of injury for older people is falls. And that's because as the nervous system degrades, the communication to the musculoskeletal system is also compromised. So a lot of the signs that people associate with aging as people get into the 30s in boxing or even sports, it's the first thing to go is your neurological system. So when people talk about timing, and if you kind of listen to what even Spence was saying, Spence doesn't even know what he's saying. He's just commenting that. He's like, oh, my timing was off. My timing was off. That is because his brain is not the same. Now, of course, you can add on to that alcohol abuse, sure. Dropping weight, water dehydration, of course. But he should have never been allowed to get into the boxing match. All you have to do is look at Ugas's fight. You can see a difference in the way he moves. Now, unfortunately, from the neck down, because he's a physical specimen, he looks amazing. But from the neck up, he is not the same person. So when you look at how badly he was beaten, I can't recall another fight where Craford looked that good. That's not an accident. When you look at Errol Spence and how he couldn't defend himself, even the first knockdown was a blow where? It was a blow to his lower chin and to his neck. You throw somebody off their core stability, and they can't recover. He looked very clumsy last night. But once again, this is just something I don't think people want to admit because people are emotionally invested in the fight, emotionally invested in boxing. This, to me, honestly, it's very sad. It should have never been allowed to happen. But that's the history of boxing.
Well, let me ask you this. First of all, have you called in before into this show?
It's been a few years, gentlemen. Yes.
I think you called. Weren't you an expert? I thought you were an expert on roids. I think that was you who'd called in.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. There.
You guys used to call me Dr. 805. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, Dr. 805. But wait a minute. So you're did you say you were a neurologist as well? Is that your area of expertise as well, or?
So my specialty is gerontology. So I have specialized in medicine and taking care of elderly people and also people going through the aging process. So I've taken care of many people with dementia, many people with neurological issues like ALS, multiple sclerosis, taking care of people with strokes. So because of that, over my career, I've done a lot of neurological exams. And it was so obvious to me. I'm talking within seconds. Even my wife, who's in the medical field, she picked up on it. She's like, what's wrong with him? I said, he has neurological damage. I said, my God, he should not even be in this fight. And what happens is when you dehydrate, which people are aware, you're depleting water. That's ultimately what you're doing. Because since the body is 70 to 75% water, so is the composition of muscle tissue. Now, the way people make weight, and for some people listening, I'm sure they know this already, but the goal is to try and pull as much water out of the muscle tissue. That is the only place you can really make a significant difference in weight. That's why you can drop 15 to 20 pounds in a week. But how that is accomplished is primarily by depleting the glycogen, which binds water to it. So glycogen holds water in a 1-to-3 ratio. So 1 gram of glycogen holds 3 grams of water to it. When you pull the glycogen out, water leaves the muscle tissue. Well, what also happens is you start losing electrolytes. So evidence of this is, anybody's ever watched a marathon race and they've seen a runner cramp up and have to leave the race, what has happened is that they've burned through the glycogen, which is stored glucose. And then once that's burned up, the water has to displace the water out of the muscle tissue. It just moves automatically. When that happens, the last thing to occur is a movement of electrolytes. So your sodium, your potassium, your magnesium. Now this gets complicated. It has to do with water balance and electrolyte functions in the body. So that's it. The body has to do this. If it doesn't, the body will die. So when you're cutting weight on somebody, especially with somebody with neurological damage, the consequences are even worse, because in the rehydration process, one of the last places to rehydrate is the brain. So when somebody like ERROL Spence is cutting weight, it is going to exacerbate underlying problems that he has, which was evident last night. And I know people don't want to say this because people have been looking to this fight, but you're talking about somebody who medically should have never been. I would not have cleared him. If I was doing the medical clearance on him, I would have denied him.
I was going to ask you that. So from your, just to recap, from your professional opinion, as a physician, you said you saw the signs of him coming out and saying, wow, he looks glassy-eyed, this man is suffering from the residual effects of
Right.
head trauma. So if a doctor from the Nevada State Athletic Commission, or whatever commission, whether it was in Texas or whatever, they must have seen this then, right?
Of course. But as we know throughout history, even in professional football and in boxing, there is a financial motive, and not everyone is ethical. So they will find a doctor who is ethically fluid and will sign off on this.
Fluid.
There are very unethical physicians.
That's a great euphemism, by the way. That's a great euphemism. Ethically fluid, not compromised, not fucking corrupt. Yeah, ethnically fluid. Yeah, guys, what do you think about what Dr. 805 just broke down here? I mean, that's a professional right there, breaking it down.
Well, the little bit that I know of stuff that I'm not an expert in, but I do know about health and nutrition based off of being a cook in the military, and we had to take nutrition training every year. He obviously said it much better than I ever could, but it goes along with the breakdowns of what we know about protein synthesis and things like that. Jimmy, I know you know a lot about this through your bodybuilding, but when it comes time to, we have to, especially when we're stationed in very hot areas, like when I was down in Key West, part of the nutrition they went over with us is we don't just give the guys buckets of water. It has to be, Gatorade or something with high electrolytes for that reason. And they broke it down nowhere near as good as Doc did right here, but they did break it down. And everything he said from what I've been, the training I've had over the 20 years of being a cook is spot on. If I have one question for you, Doc, real quick, based off of being a boxing fan, doctor aside, do you think that Bud still would have won this fight prior to the car wreck and the rest of the trauma?
Okay. That is a hypothetical, but I can tell you, can you tell me another performance from Terrence Crawford that looked like that last night?
John Molina?
That he was that dialed in? He's always dialed in. I thought he was that dialed in against...
No. I'm talking about where
Ndongo.
His opponent, it was so lopsided.
Oh, I understand what you're saying, Doc, and I'm not trying to take away everything you said about that. I was just trying to say, prior to the accident, do you think that obviously this had something to do with it? I'm saying, do you think that it could have? Do you think it would have been more competitive yet, or who would you have picked prior to everything that you stated?
Okay, so my response to that would be this: in athletics, you're always trying to assess the status of your opponent, and this goes back even into the world of gambling. They're always looking to see if there's information about does this person have an injury, or is this person have a drug problem, to try and determine how they're going to bet to see, is the opponent compromised? Are they weak? It would be hard for me to predict because, once again, this is a hypothetical. You have to look at, Terence Crawford knew the issues with Errol Spence. This is not a secret. And there's more that people are aware of on the inside of Errol Spence's camp than the boxing community is aware of. Like, look, for example, what I just observed. Because of my experience, I could pick up on this right away. And there's more things. You look at the reputation for his alcohol use. One of the reasons why there is high alcohol use amongst boxers or even football players is because the effects of alcohol, it's soothing to the brain. So think of this like the brain has a chemical storm when you have some type of trauma, whether it's CTE or what boxers have had. They used to call it punch drunk or repeat concussions. The brain actually feels better. That is why you'll also see people start beginning to use inhalants, because honestly, it takes away the pain in the brain. So Terence Crawford knew this. Everyone on the inside, even boxing fans have talked about this. They know that there's something wrong with Errol Spence. And it would be a completely different Terence Crawford if you had to go back in time. So to say he would have won, I don't know. I don't know. That's because if you've ever taken care of somebody with dementia, and I'm speaking to this because it's a very, very sad condition, and whether it's Alzheimer's, dementia, it doesn't matter. The person becomes so vulnerable on such a deep level. And when I saw Errol Spence, I said, this person can't defend himself fully. He doesn't have all of his resources there to protect himself. And one of the resources that I'm talking about is his judgment. He should have stopped himself. But there's reasons why, just like Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali should have never allowed himself to get in the ring to fight Larry Holmes, but he did. So to say that would Terence Crawford have won back then, I don't know. I couldn't tell you that. I don't know.
Well, let me say this, man, because everything you're breaking down, Dr. 805, and this is your professional opinion, some people are saying, well, you guys are making excuses. Well, first of all, here on the panel, we all picked Crawford to beat Spence, so there's no such thing as excuses. The big reason why we picked Crawford, and I keep saying it, is because of the outside-the-ring factors. The man was in a major car accident, and it's a miracle that he didn't suffer more than some shaved skin and some teeth. But then you're saying that what we didn't see was what was going on in the brain. Now, let me ask you this too, Doctor, because he was away for 16 months. Had he been away or something around that time, had he been out of the ring for that amount of time without the drinking, the boozing, the weed, whatever else he was doing, would that have actually helped him maybe reverse some of the effects that you're talking about?
It's conjecture on my part, but I believe that the reason he was out of the ring for so long is because of the damage. He couldn't do it. His team was protecting him, trying to stall, hoping he would come back enough. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say to Mr. BJ, to your point about him taking the drugs would have helped. No, that it's more of a masking thing. Basically, what the doc's saying. You ever hear like a comfortably numb Pink Floyd? Just a little prick. There'll be no more. Ah, and they scream because somebody in that schizophrenic state, they're firing wrong, and the alcohol, drugs dulls it. So that's a lot of self-medication. So the doctor's 100% right. He's also right in what he said about the glycogen and whatnot. Now let me ask you, Doc, because I found this to be, it was like they were biding the kid time. When that doctor came in to look at Spence, right? Remember when they said time out? And they called the doctor up into the ring to look into his eyes. Now, if you were looking for concussion, right? If you were looking for neurological problems, wouldn't you have used a light? Like that's like 101, right? You'll take a little pen light, let it flack by his eyes, just see if there's any response with the pupils. To me, he didn't do that. Didn't say follow my finger. I think they were just biding the kid time, and I don't think they really cared. What's your opinion?
Could I ask your name?
Oh, Jimmy.
Could I ask
your
name,
Jimmy.
Jimmy, you made a very astute observation. Now, as many things in life go, we miss a lot of information in real time. And this is something we could talk more about later. I would like everyone to go back and watch the fight again. And I pointed this out to my wife, Why did that doctor go in the ring? Nobody knew why. There was a reason why he did that. Because at that point, Errol Spence was not so debilitated that it would necessitate a doctor coming into the ring. It's because they knew ahead of time he was compromised. They were hair trigger. Why do you think the doctor went in? It was a giveaway, but the public missed it.
You're right.
Yeah, you're right.
The public missed it.
Because I've never seen that before of a doctor just going in
to make sure.
for no reason.
Well, I'm sorry, could you say that again? I missed that. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Doc, I didn't mean to talk over you.
That? I missed
break, so I thought that it was a good time
to
jump in.
No, go ahead.
I've watched boxing a long time. I've been watching boxing a long time, and I've never seen a doctor go in when an eye was swollen, a cut was bad, not just to check a guy neurologically who was like in between rounds. Like he got up from the 10 count. It was in between rounds, and then they stopped it. And everything you're saying, like you said, we see things in live time, and we miss it at first, and then we go back and go, "Oh yeah, that's what happened." And that's what just happened to me right now, sitting here listening to you, because I've never seen a doctor just go in and evaluate for no reason.
That's the thing, though. If we're talking about all the wrongdoing from Las Vegas and the Nevada State Athletic Commission, the doctor's supposed to operate outside the ropes, from outside the ropes. Like, he's not supposed to step into the ring. That the last time I saw that was Pacquiao Morales 1, when the doctor stepped into the ring to check Pacquiao's cut, and even Roy Jones said, "Hey, the referee's not supposed to do. I mean, the doctor's not supposed to step into the ring." So you're absolutely right. That's another red flag right there.
Well, BD, the only time they're allowed to do that if the ref is calling for it. If the ref calls for it, but here's the thing. We just had this recently. They stopped and everybody was all pissed about it. I forget who was fighting, and the doctor came in. If the ref wants the doctor to see you, he can't take away from your corner's time, meaning your 1 minute is with your corner. So to get an evaluation, he has to, ready, cling the belt to start, then instantly say timeout, and then he points to the doctor. And then, because that's on his time, so it has to be during, you know what I mean, not during that minute. So it very seldom happens unless there's been a severe beating. But that's the reason why they call it and, start the round, stop it, and have them look, because they can't take away from the corner's 1 minute. I'm done.
And Jimmy made a very good point. What would the message have been if the doctor had pulled out a pen light and started doing a visual tracking exam on him? What would have people thought? Everyone would have realized there's something wrong here.
Yeah.
But if he steps into the ring and grabs the gloves and says, "How are you doing? Are you okay? You okay?" It doesn't grab your attention as much. So yes.
Now, let me ask you this: in hindsight,
well, you know that.
Dr. 805, in hindsight, one of the big points of contention going to this fight was, could Spence take Crawford's punch? And we were talking about the 2 times in which Spence's mouthpiece fell off. Once in the Danny Garcia fight, and then in the Ugas fight, which nearly cost him when he got hit and should have been a knockdown because the ropes held him up. In hindsight, was that one of the things that you looked at that was worrisome? Like, whoa, why is this guy looking down? Or was that just a mistake on his part?
No. You go back and you look at those 2 fights. That's why I brought those up in passing. That was a distinct change in his demeanor. Everyone has noticed it. Everyone has commented on that. But they just didn't understand what was the cause behind it. It's because his reaction time and his ability to focus and stay present is different now. So instead of, protecting yourself, how many fighters have we seen where the mouthpiece comes out and they still fight because they're protecting themselves? Mm-hmm. He literally disconnected, started looking for his mouthpiece because he was out of the moment. And that just comes down to, if you've ever worked with people with dementia, they get so easily distracted that they will literally just, in a millisecond, redirect, and they're gone somewhere else mentally. And that's what I saw with Errol Spence.
Wait a minute, I get distracted easily all the time. Don't tell me I got dementia. Tell me it's ADD, man. Tell me it's ADD.
Well, believe it or not, you start to exhibit signs of neurological decline by your late 20s. It's just the only reason why people don't see this more is that people tend to do the same things over and over again in their life. That's why a good neurological assessment to identify somebody with signs of early dementia, what they do is they perform a battery of tests that take a person out of their comfort zone. They're having them do things that they normally wouldn't do, whether it's basic arithmetic, if it's a visual spatial, and then that is how you can identify when something's wrong. That is why when you take many older people and they get hospitalized for any type of illness, you will find many cases of psychosis where they will literally become disoriented, start to exhibit signs of paranoia because they're accustomed to living in their house. The furniture. Just think of any older person you've ever known in your life, whether it's a grandmother, an aunt. You go into their home, and all of a sudden the home doesn't change. The furniture is in the same place for 20 years, and that's because the brain becomes on autopilot, and it just starts moving through life. So I know we're kind of a little off track here, but going back to ERROL Spence, those are the things that I wanted to share, and I appreciate you guys taking my call, and I hope it led some deeper understanding of to what we were seeing. And I know people are waving pom-poms for Terrence Craford. I get it, but all is not as it seems.
Now wait a minute, you didn't call from the exam room, did you? There's not a patient with you there right now, or
no?
Okay. And by the way,
no.
Well, I don't know how you guys do it.
I'm working right now, but no.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you about, because
did anyone have any other questions?
Well, if I may ask a question here, Spence is, I believe he smokes weed, I think as well. How about weed neurologically?
Yes.
A lot of people tend to think now that weed, it's just a recreational drug, it's not that bad. But can it have adverse effects on the brain?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. It will change your reaction time. There's no doubt about that. And we know that in people that are susceptible, it can induce underlying schizophrenia. So maybe you had a propensity or a disposition towards it, and there are people that they do edibles or they smoke marijuana, and they will develop schizophrenia. This is known. This is not a secret.
Ooh.
So when people think that marijuana has no neurological effects, it does. You're just rolling the dice. And the same is with alcohol. We all know people that can drink like a fish for 30, 40 years, and they seem pretty functional. And other people, they are severely compromised, from a little bit of alcohol. It has to do with body chemistry. That's ultimately what it comes down to. So if you don't know your body chemistry, some people are blessed with enzymes that metabolize alcohol at a very high rate, very efficiently. So therefore, for them, alcohol actually functions almost like a liquid carbohydrate. And for other people, and this is especially true for women, this is why alcohol is so much more damaging to women, they do not possess enough of an enzyme called alcohol dehydrogenase, which allows them to metabolize and break down alcohol. This is why the effects of alcohol hit them so much harder. This is one of several things, but I'm just giving you an example.
Right. Well, that's fascinating, right?
So the marijuana, marijuana is not going to help ERROL Spence, not at all.
Jeez Louise.
But of all narcotics, Doc, isn't alcohol and benzodiazepine, those are the ones that can actually kill you, actually go into seizures from it. Like cocaine, heroin, you might feel like you're going to die, but because of the alcohol, especially because the alcohol literally wipes out all the glycogen in your liver. So that's why against, like, when it destroys everything you've done in the gym. Like, so I stress, like, by boxers shouldn't be drinking. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, unfortunately, the public does not have a healthy respect for the effects of alcohol. Just take a look at individuals who die in one night from alcohol poisoning at frat parties. Alcohol is very, very dangerous. So when you start drinking, you don't realize this, but you're on a spectrum. If you keep going, every person will die. That's not even a question. It's just how much alcohol are you drinking? What is your resilience to it? So
sounds like a challenge to me.
A fighter. Go ahead.
That sounds like a challenge to me.
I'm sorry. Challenge. I hope I don't come across as a Debbie Downer, but I just think the whole discussion about Terrence Crawford's performance and ERROL Spence, it needs to be looked through a different lens, and it is unfortunately very sad. And I agree with Jimmy. ERROL Spence should never fight again. He should not be allowed to fight. And I hope more people have the courage to step forward and say this, because, being in my position, I have to deliver very uncomfortable news on a daily basis. And if you don't get to a place where you realize being honest with somebody is more important than shielding their feelings, then you're not going to be good in your position or your profession, or this profession, I should say.
Interesting, man.
Hey, Doc, I was going to say something. Yeah, it's true. Like, when I used to watch ERROL Spence before, although he was younger, I think he was more creative in the ring. Now he's just like an autopilot. And he's not really using any type of defense aside from maybe parrying. to block the punches. That's not a given. You're gonna catch everything the other fighter throws. And
here we go.
The thing with Spence,
very good.
The thing with Spence, he already got knocked out. The mystique is gone. Fighters are gonna see this dude's been broken before. He's breakable.
Doc,
that's all I want to say.
And this is what's beautiful about good. This is what's beautiful about good conversation, is that it stimulates people to start thinking. So he just brought up a very, very good point. And then, if you remember, Errol Spence's trainer was telling him over and over again, move lateral, move lateral, move lateral. Do you guys recall this?
Absolutely, yes.
He was telling Errol Spence not to stay in front of him, stop moving back and forth. Do you recall this? Maybe you guys didn't catch that.
I think I heard it.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I did.
So I did. Okay, why could Errol Spence not implement that? Because when a person is neurological compromised, lateral movement is gone. Your side-to-side diagonal movements are weak. So if you think back, this is why all he could do was go back and forth, front and back. Even my wife said, he can only go front and back. I said, I know, he can't go side to side. Because you go side to side, and what happens? You start losing your balance. Errol Spence knows this. He knows this. Derek James was screaming at him, get off the line, move side to side, move lateral. He literally physically could not do it. He had the muscle.
Yeah, he lacks the dexterity that he used to have. He had more.
Correct. Absolutely. And those little things.
Derek James probably wanted to stop the fight, but then he realized he was going to make $1.5 million, and he said, well, you're not really my son.
Oh, come on. Wait a minute. Well, you never know, man.
Well, I'm just being honest. Imagine if he actually knew that, if they actually knew there was that kind of neurological damage, and he let that fight, even take place. That's what I'm saying. That would be almost, that's like cold-blooded shit right there, because he's known him since he's like been 14, hasn't he? That'd be fucked up.
Yeah.
So I hope some of what I shared today brings up some things that maybe some people didn't realize or didn't see regarding the fight last night.
Well, I suspect most people in your profession probably will not say it because they don't want to compromise the fight. That there's a lot of money involved. There was a lot of money involved in the fact that this was supposed to be a 50-50 fight. So I suspect many people, many of your colleagues will be staying quiet in regards to this issue. But let me tell you something. It was eye-opening. It was fascinating, and I hope people take into account, man, because you're getting a professional opinion here from somebody who saw the signs and probably explains why Craford looked the way he did as well. I mean, shout out to Craford, but it is what it is. You can't discount a car accident and that type of trauma. Anyway, listen, Dr. 805, man, anything else you want to say?
No, I just want to say thank you very much. I enjoy the show, and I wish everyone the best. Have a beautiful Sunday.